Sorry, thank you. Yes, this is being recorded just for reference. So welcome to the Near Northwest Area Plan Focus Group. Actually, it's a roundtable meeting. We will talk about completing green streets tonight for the Near Northwest Area Plan. That's Chafee Park, Sunnyside, Highland, and Jefferson Park. I'm Jennifer Bartlett with Alta Planning and Design. I'm part of the consultant team. I'm so sorry, I should have done that first. We have some other folks from the consultant team on the call, but we will hold introductions till a little bit later, probably when we break into focus groups. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, there are a number of folks on the call, maybe too many to go around, but if you want to put your name and information in chat, that'd be a great start. And again, we can chat, we can go into it a little bit further in the focus groups, the breakout groups. I'd like to kick things off with a demographic survey. So the City of Denver is committed to broadening the participation of underrepresented communities throughout the process. The answers to the questions will help us understand who we're hearing from and ensure that we're getting voices from across the community. We may report the information, but your name will not be associated with the responses. We don't share it. Your information will be kept throughout the duration of the project, but will be really helpful to understand who the folks are on this call, and then obviously we're throughout the project as well. I think Ella, if you can launch the survey.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and I can't see what you see, so I do, just if someone could just confirm.
It is up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
And I know we have some city staff on here as well. You guys are more than welcome to take the poll, but you don't need to. We're trying to, what we're really trying to track is the community members who we're hearing from. So you're welcome to just hang out for this one.
Looks like we're getting a lot of responses, so thanks to everybody.
Yeah, I think we've got the folks in the community.
Okay.
So I will go ahead and end that. And yeah, thank you all for taking that. We'll just have that background. Again, it's just something that we want to track to make sure we're hearing from a representative cross section of the community.
Okay, so quick overview of the agenda. We've been through the welcome and introduction. We're working on it now. We'll do a focus topic overview. We're going to do a little bit of review of kind of what we've heard for the green streets and complete streets from the issues and opportunities document, highlights, opportunities that may encourage discussion in the small groups. Then we'll break into small groups for about 45 minutes. We will talk about transit streets and neighborhood streets. And then we will come back out of those at about 6:40, do a quick report out of what was talked about in these small group discussions. And then we will up with how to stay engaged in this project. Okay. So I know folks are aware of kind of Zoom etiquette. If you feel comfortable, please turn video on. Mute it when you're not speaking, and that sort of minimizes background noise. Use that chat function if you've got questions during the presentation. It's a large enough group where we can take questions, but also in chat makes things easier. And just a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. And when we break into small groups, those will be recorded as well. Do an overview of the timeline. So that red arrow is where we are. We're in the middle of feedback from the community. This is the first of a series of opportunities to engage. We spent a good part of 21 kind of developing an understanding of the area. So this will be the first round of feedback, but certainly not the last. We'll spend about 5 months meeting with the community in various groups and focus areas, and then take that recommendation information into developing those, like you see, recommendations later in 22-23. As I mentioned, this is definitely not the only opportunity for feedback. We look forward to you staying engaged through the whole process and getting your input all the way through. We anticipate being done spring or summer of 23, so it is a fairly long timeline. If you haven't already, the project website at denvergov.org near Northwest is a tremendous repository of information. This effort right now is based on work done developing a deep understanding of existing conditions. We developed a briefing book with a lot of data, stats, great, terrific, nerdy information if you're into that kind of stuff. There's also a document, a phase 1 community engagement summary, which tells you how we got to where we are in the feedback we've heard so far. And then the issues and opportunities summary is really kind of a wrap up of what we've heard. And that's what this meeting is based on tonight. But again, head to that website. There's a video, there are surveys. You can certainly sign up for that newsletter to keep you informed. It's also the place to sign up for other meetings and really stay involved with the project. So the purpose of these meetings is really to dive into a topic. And so we've had some opportunities to have general discussions, but we've really created these smaller group sessions to get to go deeper, because there is a lot to talk about. So the point of this is to have topic-based conversations, and this one would be green and complete streets, to talk in small groups, because it's easier to share sometimes that way, to discuss ideas, develop those strategies, ideas, and tools, and really help us advance the work we're doing and will continue to do. Just as a teaser, we will do some polling questions that kind of set the general tone, but in the smaller groups, we're going to have 2 sets of key questions we're trying to answer. That first one is about major transit streets, and we're going to talk about prioritizing elements in a minute. And then the second question is focused on neighborhood streets. So what are your priorities in your neighborhood, the east, west, north, south? What are those barriers and opportunities? And then what elements of green infrastructure do you prioritize? So what ends up being important to you when you think about green infrastructure? Before we dive into the poll questions, a little bit about what we heard, and this is in that issues and opportunities document. So if you're curious or want to know more, please take a look at that after the meeting. We heard a lot of really good stuff. What do we like? It's bikeable and walkable, or walkable if you're trying to combine the two. There's access to downtown. You've got access to light rail and transit, and you've also got easy access to highways, which is a bonus, a benefit. There's a lot that we struggle with. We've got dangerous intersections. Cars move too quickly. We have big roads, big streets, big roads. Federal Spear, 38th Zuni, move a lot of cars. They're tough to cross. We've got narrow sidewalks, particularly in Chafee Park. Bike facilities, poor or not at all. Traffic seems to be increasing. We've got major barriers to moving around the neighborhood, and there's public transit deficiencies that we'd like to see, that the community would like to see addressed. Lots of ideas. So one of that first round of feedback was about what do we like, not like, and then how do we solve some of these problems? Traffic calming was a thing that came up. Wider sidewalks, transit enhancements on major streets, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Widen sidewalks. You know, it's hard to walk on a sidewalk with a stroller and a kid when it's too narrow. Better accommodation for ADA. Safer and more crossings from major streets, Federal, Spear, 38th. Just crossings in general, safer crossings near schools. We know kids are out there crossing, and it makes sense maybe to focus some of our attention there. More protected bike lanes, better bike facilities in general. And then better connections across interstates and railroads, which can be serious barriers to moving between neighborhoods. And like I said, just a summary, the full detail can be found in that issues and opportunities document. So like we talked about, or like I've mentioned, we are going to dive into complete and green streets, a topic that is near and dear to my heart and everyone on the team. So let's get to it. Krista, you want to take us through some of the mobility issues?
Yeah, certainly. So these issues were gathered through previous public engagement, through just a general network analysis, and through analyzing crash trends in the area. So I'll just jump in. The first key issue for mobility in the near Northwest is the fact that many roadways are not meeting the community's needs for modes of travel other than vehicles. During previous engagement efforts, people expressed that the existing neighborhood transportation network didn't provide enough space or comfort for pedestrians and cyclists. As well as Jen mentioned, multiple streets in the area are designated as future transit streets. So in order to better accommodate these additional transportation modes, complete streets are needed. Complete streets ensure that multiple transportation modes are provided space and infrastructure. And on certain streets, some modes are given more or less priority. However, complete streets ensure that in the neighborhood and city overall, each mode has a complete network to safely travel around on. Due to the mostly built out nature of this neighborhood, we have space constraints that would require those trade-offs. The map at right shows complete street opportunity locations using the black dashed line style that kind of highlights the outside edges of those streets. So those are our opportunities for implementing complete streets to make more space for alternative modes of transportation. Next slide. All right, so intersections are the next key issue in the area. 3 streets in the near Northwest have been identified as part of the city's high injury network. That's shown in yellow on the slide above. The high injury network is the collection of streets where the majority of crashes happen citywide. So the 3 streets on the network in the near Northwest are Federal, Spear, and 38th Avenue. These are the same streets where the city plans for high capacity transit in the future. In addition, the grid switch between Low-High and the rest of the near Northwest and the diagonal nature of Spear lead to the creation of 5-way intersections and intersections with extremely sharp or wide turns. The intersection shown on this slide requires an almost 180-degree turn from Spear onto 29th. These intersections can create long crossing distances for pedestrians, confusion for drivers, difficulties for cyclists, and allow for too much vehicle speed through turns. The intersection with the most bicycle and pedestrian crashes in the near Northwest is actually the intersection of 20th Ave, Central Street, and 32nd. That's near that exit to I-25 or off of I-25. Next slide. Thanks, Jen. So now we're on to bike network gaps and deficiencies. And multiple gaps and deficiencies in the current network exist in this area. Gaps are areas that people want and need to ride to get from point A to point B, but the lack of infrastructure deters people from biking. As an example of a gap, the photo above shows a biker walking on the sidewalk to cross to Chaffee Park due to the uncomfortable nature of biking in heavy vehicle traffic on Federal. Deficiencies are areas where there might technically be a bike facility, but it is very uncomfortable to use. The dashed lines highlighted in yellow are bike facility improvements that are going to be built in the next 2 years by Dottie. And these investments will help significantly, but there will still be gaps in the neighborhood to address. The gaps that remain can be seen on the map in the white areas with the blue dashed lines. So yeah, that's just those white lines right there. All right, Jen. Thanks. And the last one we have is the issue of inadequate sidewalks. The map on the right shows the orange where sidewalks are less than 4 feet. This is mainly an issue in Chaffee Park in the north areas of Sunnyside. And there you can see in this photo, we have a narrow sidewalk with the rollover curb, and these are like less than 3 feet wide. These are uncomfortable to use because it makes it difficult for people to walk side by side, travel in a wheelchair, or push a stroller. There's a few areas in the neighborhood where there's no sidewalks altogether. Those can be seen in red on the slide. And finally, we have major transit corridors like Federal, Spear, and 38th, and they have sidewalks, but they're quite narrow and uneven. This is depending on the recency of development along those streets. The sidewalks can vary a lot. This photo shows Spear, just south of 29th, and where these sidewalks are attached next to these high volume, high speed, and loud vehicle travel lanes is extremely uncomfortable to access bus stops or walk along the street. Just for reference, Denver street design guidelines recommend a minimum of 6-foot sidewalk on our low volume local streets. And on our arterials, they're recommending 8 feet wide, separated with a 12-foot tree lawn. So that would be what the city's goal would be in ideal conditions moving forward. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Eileen Flax with Studio CPG, and we've been looking at the neighborhood from a stormwater and green infrastructure perspective. So the key issue here is a loss of permeable ground to treat water quality. In the image on the left, you can see all the impervious surfaces in the area. These are all the areas in black. And so this means that when it rains, water falls on these areas and quickly picks up any pollutants that are on the streets and transmits them right down quickly to the South Platte River. This creates water quality issues, both from the pollutants that are there and the velocity of the water that's coming down to the Platte. It also means that water isn't infiltrating in the basin and supporting vegetation there. And so we have increased surface temperatures related to heat islands. And that's the diagram on the right showing increased surface temperatures through the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So this is a diagram showing how we've lost permeable ground incrementally in the basin. So the green areas are landscape, the blue and orange are buildings, and the gray are streets and parking areas. So on the left in 2010, we had a land use pattern that included lots of single family homes and lots of landscaped areas. And that has shifted over the last decade to be much larger buildings, much more paving. So this incremental increase in the permeable area is a pattern that we see throughout the city. In this basin, we don't have flooding issues because we're located high above the South Platte on this bluff. So we're not addressing flooding issues. That means that there aren't any big projects where we can also layer on addressing water quality issues. And so we need to look for incremental ways to address water quality in this basin as well. Next slide. We're talking about this in relation to green streets because the roadway is a perfect opportunity to include permeable areas. These are stormwater planters that can be included as part of the roadway. And so these are areas adjacent to the street that receive water, allow that water to infiltrate, remove pollutants, slow down, and decrease the volumes before it enters the stormwater system. And these could be long and linear or short and squat, but they're supporting vegetation. Next slide, please. Another opportunity is with permeable pavements. Again, these are areas where water can still slow down, pollutants get removed before the water enters the stormwater system. We've been using these in parking areas. We can also look at the potential of using them in a whole street section. All of these areas need to be located in relation to the existing stormwater infrastructure because that water still returns to that same stormwater system. So these are some of the opportunities that we're looking at. Next slide. Can you hit the next slide? Another opportunity are historic parkways. Both Spear Boulevard and Federal Boulevard are historic parkways, part of the city's Park and Parkway network. These roads through this area the parkway functions have been somewhat compromised, but it is something that we're looking at embracing and enhancing. There may be opportunities to look at places like Viking Park along Spear Boulevard, where there's a wider park area, and there may be additional opportunities to increase permeability and support those parkway functions. There may also be opportunities like 46th Avenue, which is not a parkway through this area, but it is west of here. And so extending that network and making more of a park connection through that street is a potential opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. I'm getting an occasional note that my internet connection's unstable. So can everyone see the open street slide? Did it switch for y'all? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Eileen. And so back to kind of mobility opportunities, we saw open streets kind of arise as something during COVID as creating space for people. Marion Parkway, 11th, and then this one in Arvada. So something to consider as we're planning how to use our streets in the future. And then finally, the slide kind of summarizes what we will talk about in just a minute. Just to orient you to this map, we've got opportunities identified where we could deal with the Green Street infrastructure as well as bike infrastructure, taking advantage of limited space to do multiple things. So on this map, the white lines are where bike routes are existing or proposed. Blue is where Green Street infrastructure is being implemented according to plan, and potential streets, potential infrastructure opportunities would be shown in either light green or that chartreuse green. So focusing in on those where there's that overlap opportunity, east-west, we're talking about 50th, 46th, 38th, 35th, and Spear. And then north-south, Zuni, Tejon, Navajo, and Lipan. And those will come up in the conversation in the small group, but just kind of orient you to some of these opportunities that have been preliminarily identified. Okay, so we're going to deviate a little bit from how these meetings have gone previously and do some big group poll questions. So let's talk a little bit about existing conditions on 38th, which is one of the streets that we are reimagining perhaps. Currently, 38th is, well, let's just say it's envisioned as a medium capacity street. So not high, not BRT, but medium capacity for transit. It's somewhere from 75 to 85 feet right away, narrow sidewalks. It's got high traffic volumes. And so the question we are wanting to pose to you, and I guess we could launch the poll question. I don't know if we need to do it. I guess leave this up and do it, Ella. Would be, what components do you most value for 38th Avenue, knowing what it is now and what you sort of envision it to be in the future? And you get to pick 5. I don't think you can pick them all. So when you envision 38th in the future, what matters most to you?
Clarify that you don't have to pick 5. You can just pick up to 5.
Yep.
Whatever you value most.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have most people gotten it in there, so I'm gonna, this is your 5-second warning, so you can hit enter if you haven't done it yet. And yeah, I'll go ahead and end and then share the results. Are you guys seeing those results?
Yeah. So transit comes to the top, landscaping, wider sidewalks. Car parking doesn't rank terribly high. Great.
Could whoever wrote other put that in the chat or share that? What's the other?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, we'll hit the next one. And again, this is focusing on the major transit streets just at the kind of higher level outset. We'll dive into neighborhood when we get into our small group. So the next one to think about would be Spear. Existing conditions. Eileen talked about sort of the historic parkway status. We know it's a wide right of way, 90 feet, but it varies. High traffic volumes, cars are very quickly, they move very quickly along the corridor. Narrow and dangerous sidewalks. We've got places where we go, the cross section changes. So travel lanes, turn lane. We've got folks turning on and off Spear into driveways and things like that. So the question, again, same question, is what components do you value most for Spear in the future? You guys are quick. I think, was it 13 we had last time? 14 maybe.
There, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this one and share the results.
Okay. So similar, car parking fairly low, street trees, landscaping, transit, slower vehicle speeds, wider sidewalks. Some votes for furniture, better lighting, bike facilities. And again, an other, curious, what's the other? Another could be green infrastructure.
That is actually already in the chat.
Okay.
Sorry, I have too many Zoom windows open, so I lost that one.
Excuse me.
Better sidewalk / maintenance.
Oh, maintenance. Okay. And that hadn't been listed. Great. Thank you, everybody. And so the last one we'll touch on as far as major transit streets goes is Federal Boulevard. And this slide is really just about the amount of work going on out there now. So it may not be, we knew it would come up, but given the amount of work, maybe it comes up in a slightly different way. I'm not going to read this list. This information is all on the web, but I think it's important to know that there is a lot going on between now and 23. This next slide is what's going on in our study area. And so we've got that Federal Boulevard Pedestrian Improvements Project. Improvements for that area include curb ramps, crossing signals, sidewalk expansion, green space, gathering spaces. There is a survey that's open. And so the link on the bottom of the slide is that federalpedimprovements.com. A little bit of a mouthful, excuse me. But if you head there, there's a survey, there's more information about the project. And you can dig or dive a little deeper into it if you're curious. So as far as federal goes, another cross section to share just a little bit about, and a poll up. But right away it varies anywhere from 60 to 90 feet. We've got light poles in sidewalks. We've got attached and detached sidewalks. We've got places where folks are turning from main drag into businesses. But I think importantly that cross section varies the entire length. So like we did last time, what is most important for you for federal as far as the future vision is concerned? All right, a couple
Great,
more.
looks like we have the 13 we've been getting, so I'm going to go ahead and end that and then share.
Okay, so transit, slow vehicle speeds, wider sidewalks, bike facilities, again, not much interest in car parking, street trees, better lighting, and then other. Is there a chat other we could share?
Yes, the other is about pedestrian safe crossings, bridges at key points along Federal at 38th, 46th, and 32nd.
Oh, great. Okay, terrific. This is great. Thank you, everybody. And so this information kind of feeds into that first key question we'll be diving into a little bit in our small group sessions.
And we've gotten some other good comments in the chat. Just want you to let you all know you're going to be in these smaller groups, so you're welcome to bring these issues up. We'll also be saving the chat from this meeting, so we'll have that information if we don't get to touch on it in the big group, because I know we want to leave time for the smaller discussions.
Okay, let me hold on. Oop, okay. And then, all right, so we're about to head in a small group. A reminder about the questions. We're going to cover the major transit streets and also get a little bit into what we want to see our neighborhood streets looking like.
So I'm about to send you all to your groups. I switched kind of at the last minute because we got some extra people from 2 groups to 3. So if you notice there are too many city staff, I might move you. So if you suddenly get pulled out, that's why. But yeah, so we'll be heading into small groups. We'll come back to this big group at approximately 6:40. So you've got about 35 minutes, and I'll be sending out chats with some reminders. So I'm going to send you all off on your way now. See you back here soon.
Great. Thank you, Ella.
And Jacob, I realized that you joined after I just first opened this, but now I see, so I am sending you to a room.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Right
cool.
now. Sorry about that. You should be headed there. You should have an invite for that now.
Great.
All right, looks like we are all here.
Excellent. Welcome back, everybody. I don't know about everyone else, but our discussion was awesome. Okay.
Not sure what happened there. Sorry.
All right. Again, just thank you everyone for sharing. It was a true discussion in our room. I did pick on someone to share for us. Did everyone else identify folks to share to? Krista, Eileen, folks are on deck.
I am horrible and did not do that, but we did have some people who chose to speak up a lot. Jacob or Jack, when the time comes up, if you would like to take the lead on that, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
Okay. Why don't we start with our room? Because like I said, we did have someone to volunteer for tribute here. Michael, if you can see my screen, let me go down to our notes. You want to just take a shot at a summary?
Sure. We agreed with how they were prioritized. Generally, the concerns were about crossing versus going along the side of the street. So the pictures seem a little misleading maybe when that was chosen. In our group, we discussed that. It's not just
Can everyone hear Michael? No? Okay.
No.
Michael, we lost you.
I'm back. I hope. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we
Sorry.
can.
I turned off my
Thank you.
video so that I can talk because it's the time of day in my neighborhood where the internet goes to kaput.
I get that.
Sorry. So we did agree with how things were prioritized, but maybe thinking about not just walking along major streets, but getting across major streets. I-70 bridge crossing can be difficult even on the sidewalk, but you know, getting across the major intersections is really important. So also that sidewalks came up every single meeting was a point that I brought up. I've been on all of these calls and every time sidewalks get made before we even get to breakouts. Bus and transit needs make sense if RTD is working with it. If you're walking, lack of shade, so trees, I'm really glad somebody from forestry is here. it just needs to feel safe. It needs to feel like you want to go walking. Obviously, we want to deal with climate change and health issues, but you got to feel safe doing all of that. If you can scroll down a little bit for me, I can finish the rest of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Our major streets were 32nd and Tejon, Zunai Street, businesses on it already. So that north and south Zunai corridor. It also runs from 56th Avenue all the way down to Spear. So it's a major street for us with plans on it already. 44th is becoming a hub, lean into it. 46th, extending the Parkway was a great idea, and it was kind of a toss up for 46th and 44th. Also, all the schools that connect along Zunai from Jefferson Park through Sunnyside all the way up to Chafee. We didn't talk too much about the major streets because we wanted to focus. It seems like attention's already focused on those, but they're avoided if you're on a bike at all, period. They're just major transit routes. So crosswalks are lacking, ADA access issues, Federal and Spear is key. Anytime we're crossing rivers, there's barriers that we're dealing with all over our neighborhood. And having access to Lodo by crossing Zunai or Spear is a very unpleasant experience if you've ever tried to do it by foot without a vehicle. Sorry, the blue.
Barriers and connectivity opportunities.
Yeah, so moving around in the neighborhoods, getting to other neighborhoods, bike lane drops out and they're not connected, sidewalks and lack of safe parking, bike parking in other neighborhoods, near Northwest, underpass on 38 to the parks, the sidewalks don't get cleared off of snow. That 38th Avenue, that underpass that
Uh-oh. I think, Michael, we lost you again. Unless that's me this time. It's not me. Okay, thank you, Ella.
would kill 3 birds with 1 stone, I think. It deals with permeability, it deals with green space, and it deals with widening and safety issues from traffic. And then obviously elements that we want to prioritize: wider, safer sidewalks, safer bike facilities, raised crosswalks to bring people up to the level of cars, even though there might be some, pushback from facilities in the city, but it's an important thing. And bulb outs or curb extensions, which make us feel safe when we're walking or riding our bikes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. All right, let's see. Krista, who did you tag?
All right, so Jack is going to take the lead for us on our summary, and I can share my screen.
Yeah, if we can get the notes up. Are those the notes from our group?
Yeah,
Go
those
ahead.
are everybody's.
Oh, there we go.
So this was us talking about our priorities.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, generally we agreed with the priorities from the poll. There were a lot of issues we saw with federal crossings, especially up at 46th, right? Like people that want to get to the parks in near Berkeley, want to try to prioritize crossings there. Like people, it's just very unsafe, I guess. Cars always coming fast. But no, I had was better connections from Spear to get to Cherry Creek Trail, because it feels like to me you kind of have to go across the pedestrian bridges and stuff in the middle of near Tejon. So I think better connections to Cherry Creek Trail from our neighborhood would make sense. 38th also is a very busy street. It's kind of hard to bike or walk on. We talked a little bit about that. Just making the sidewalks wider is definitely a big priority there, I think. As well as always intersections were a big focal point for our group. Let's see. Oh yeah, so north, south, or just neighborhood routes. I mean, yeah, all the main ones you can think of, Pecos and Tejon, Zunai like all important. There was a path. Actually, I wasn't totally sure what this is. Who was talking about this? Jacob, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if you want to describe more about that path, but I was actually curious about that. But like there's a lot of opportunities for better connections that exist, I guess, by Avanti and 20th. I don't know if you want to share a bit more about that.
oh, I was just saying there's like an existing path that I don't know even know when it was put in that runs from pretty much Avanti 20th Street all the way up to 37th ish to the bridge that crosses underneath I-25. I just thought that it's already existing with a little bit of work and upkeep on it. There's some nice murals and planters and everything. I just suggested that, and maybe between some lighting and some cleanup, they could make that something that people actually know where it is and can use it.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about now. Looking at a map, yeah, I've been on that.
Yeah, it
It
runs
is a
right
bit
by the
sketchy.
highway. It's pretty cool. You have to dodge some bushes and like trash sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's a weird area but there's plenty of apartments and people living all along that. But I think it tends to push people away based on just the way it looks. It's used.
Yeah, I think
really-
lighting would be big there for sure.
Yeah, at night. I mean, you got a giant like highway wall and but even during the day, if it just seemed more inviting, I think you could do a nice loop like and use that. But yeah, that was my input on that one.
Yeah. I also talked about better bike facilities at Zunai, like especially from like Spear to like 20 or to 32nd. But yeah, there's also opportunities, looks like on Clay and Dunkeld. What else do we talk about?
Aspirational Netherlands.
Yeah,
infrastructure.
yeah, just like overall general, like we can always strive for better facilities for pedestrians and bikes. We should be like looking at other countries and cities for examples. Narrowing streets and like road diets is very important. So yeah, I think those are like the main points we talked about.
Yeah, I think you got it. Thanks for taking the lead on that, Jack.
Yeah.
All right, I'm
Kristen,
gonna,
bring up the next one.
yeah, am I sharing or are you?
You are. You might as well if it's the same doc, right? So just
Perfect.
scroll up
Great.
to Eileen.
Here we are. Heading down to Eileen's group.
Matt, you're going to share a couple?
Yes, I was elected to share for our group. We had some great ideas. So as far as prioritizing, I think we, definitely agreed with the priority, but we thought there were some additional items. So let's see. We think maintenance as far as the median on the Boulevard and other business improvement districts that currently exist have things like lighting, street furniture, trash cans, but they're not upkept. And it sounds like for other areas in the neighborhood as well. One thing I just saw Keith add that didn't come up in the call, but maybe a point of topic is EV charging. So public EV charging stations along roadways that could be built in. Connecting streets to facilities to other neighborhoods. So it came up about the 5280 loop or prioritizing non-car modes of transportation with thoroughfares to other neighborhoods downtown, and then also community centers and transportation hubs. So on the east side of Sunnyside, there's plans on Blueprint Denver to have a community center. So it'd be nice to have complete streets that connect to those hubs. Protected crossings, so hawk crossings, especially for ADA. It came up that, not only ramps at every street crossing, but also ways for ADA and other wheeled vehicles to safely cross streets and not be blocked by micro mobility. So scooters, shared bikes, although they're very helpful for people getting around, there's not really a place to store those. So having places to store those would be great. Let's see. The green infrastructure came up a lot as well. We thought it was a great way to allow for people to actually get outside, have the feel of micro parks, and reduce heat island effect on those corridors. All right, where are we?
We are on.
Oh, what two streets? Yeah. So obviously there is a limit with funding, but the big corridors we saw were 44th, Tejon, Federal 38th, 32nd, and Zunai as well. 20th as a way to get over the highway. Most of those led to, places of employment, entertainment, housing, and then things like the community center or new locations such as Fox Park. So having complete streets with mobility options to those main points of interest would be preferable. Let's see, this is where it came up about, so I think I covered some of this already, but the scooters, not having a place to store those, bikes as well. I think those are necessary modes of transportation for micromobility, but to make them safer, it would be great to have a place to store them, but also a place to ride those that are protected, that actually can get you to, locations of shopping, entertainment, or work. And then for the green infrastructure, just focusing on, appropriate plants for our environment, and the ability to filter water, but also provide greenery for users of the paths.
Awesome, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to take back and wrap it up. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. I got to thank everyone for their input. I really appreciate it. It ends up being a little bit of a late evening, but the insight you guys offer is so important. And of course, there's more opportunities. And so we've got, with the meeting tonight, we've got another affordable housing and wealth building topic roundtable, so kind of more focused. We'll have neighborhood roundtables coming up, and then drop-in workshops, which will be very interactive opportunities to mark, write, and offer additional comments, things like that. So again, the website has a ton of resources, would let you sign up for things and also let you follow the project as it evolves. We heard great ideas tonight, and I think continue to talk about them and incorporate them into the plan. So I don't know if there's anything else, or with that, are we?
Yeah, I think I would just add, we really appreciate your time. This is an exciting time in the plan to start to brainstorm different solutions and what things might look like. And then just to remind people that the planning process is a long one. We have, about another year, over a year. And so you'll be hearing from us again. If you're on our email list, I hope you are. Then you'll be hearing about the future phases where we'll want to come back to once we're gonna take all the information that we hear in this round and start to distill that into recommendations. And so there'll be a couple more, this will start to take more form, and we'd love to get your ongoing feedback throughout that. So thank you for your participation tonight, and please stay tuned. We'd love to hear from you more in the future and get this plan off the ground.
How do you join the email list? Sorry.
If you actually, if the right up on the screen right now, there's that QR code, the Scan Me, you can follow that, or you can go, yep, Jennifer's pointing to the web link there. Both of those have a place where you can sign up for our email list. It'll just bring you to a general, yep.
Okay, QR code, easy.
That is the best way to stay in touch, because anytime we have things to review, I see in the chat when the details for the neighborhood roundtables be up. Nick, I'm not sure if you're talking about the I believe we're sending out an email blast on that next week that will have it should start to have the signups for these the neighborhood roundtables. They're going to be the same format. They're going to be on Zoom from 5:30 to 7, and then the drop-in workshops, those are the in-person ones. We are in the next couple weeks going to have like a sign up genius way that you can sign up for different time slots during that. So yeah, I think that's all from us. It's 7, it's St. Patrick's Day. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your night. And we look forward to hearing more from you in future stages.
Thank you for putting this on.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.